morning. My name is Erica Lawanda, and I'm going to give you a few tips on braiding challah dough. Now, I use 6 strands to braid my loaves of challah, but there are so many different ways you can braid your challah. You can have a 3-strand like a regular braid, a 4-strand like a fishtail, a 6-strand like I do, and even up to 8 strands. But I find one of the prettiest challah braids to be the 6-strand. So come on in, let's get started. Over here, I have my large batch of dough, and I can make about 15 challahs from this large batch. So what I do when I'm going to make my challah is I measure out my dough so that all of the strands are equal. All right, let's get started braiding. I'm going to take one of my 6 balls of dough and dust it with some flour. And I'm going to get started rolling my logs. So I want my logs to be even and fairly long. And I'm going to go back and repeat that step 5 more times. So my challah dough is different because I incorporate honey into my dough, which adds a depth of flavor that is sweet and earthy at the same time. Some recipes call for just sugar, and I think that has kind of a flat flavor. So by adding some honey, I give it a nice rounded flavor. Sometimes when I'm making my dough, I enjoy adding orange zest to the actual dough, which gives a hint, not too much, just a little bit of a citrus flavor in the dough. And the orange zest pairs so nicely with flavors like chocolate chip challah and raisin challah and sesame challah and za'atar challah and everything bagel spice. Those are just some of the flavors that I use. I've created a home bakery called Touch of Hope. So I have been baking throughout the quarantine. At first, I was giving all the profits to different organizations that were feeding the hungry. But ever since then, I have started my own business, and it's been going really well. People have really responded nicely to my challahs, and I have been making babkas and cinnamon buns, and there's a whole bunch of other things. So let's get to braiding. We have our 6 strands here on the board, and what we want to do is we want to take all of the ends and we want to pinch them together. So you see how it's pinched together? Now I'm going to fold that down underneath the strands so we get a good permanent seal. And then I'm going to separate my strands so they're fanned out. I take the outer 2 most strands and I cross them over each other. And I'm going to take the strand that's underneath and put it in the middle. Then I work with the 2nd strand from the right and pull that over all the way to the left. And I take my outermost strand and I pull that back so it goes into the middle. And I'm just going to be working the same way, taking the 2nd most strand from the left and then the outermost strand, which goes into the middle. 2nd most strand from the right goes all the way to the left. Outermost strand comes back into the middle. 2nd most strand from the left goes to the right. Outermost strand goes into the middle. And again and again. And it takes a little practice when you start out. Your braid might be really thick at one end and get very thin at the other end, but really, the more times that you do this, the better your challahs will look. So once I'm done braiding, I take the end that I've been working with and I lay that underneath so that I can get a uniform challah. So now I'm going to show you how to create a stuffed challah. And today I'm making a raisin challah. So I would have my 6 balls of dough on my counter, and I've already rolled out and stuffed these 4 strands with the raisins. But let me show you what I'm doing. So I have my dough and I want to dust it with the flour so that it doesn't stick, because I'm going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to create a flat surface for my raisins to go in, so that on the inside of the dough, when you bite into it, you will have all of these delicious raisins. So then what I want to do is I want to make a line of our raisins, and you don't want to stuff it too much, because remember, each of your 6 strands has the raisins inside of it. So if you have too many, it's going to burst open, and then that will not be so lovely looking. All right, so what we want to do after we make our line of raisins, our raisin line, we want to close the dough. Oh, and that little beautiful sound that you heard was my oven, which I have preheating to 350 degrees. When I bake my challahs, I bake them in a 375 degree oven for 30 minutes. So for 15 minutes, one of my pans is on the top, and then I rotate them so that the other pan gets the top rack for 15 minutes. So here I have my 6 stuffed strands, and I'm going to braid my challah again, just like I did before. So you want to gather all of your strands and make sure they are secure at the top. And then we're going to crisscross our strands and do the exact same method as we did before. Now, if you remember, the challah that I braided for you before was quite smooth and uniform in size. These stuffed challah doughs get a little lumpier, which is not a problem. It's just slightly different than the other type. So we have our raisin challah all braided. Doesn't that look lovely? It's so much fun. All right, so now it's time to egg wash and put our challahs in the oven. So under these towels, my challahs have been resting for about 30 minutes. It's the last rise in the process before they head into the oven and become yummy, delicious challahs that you and your family are going to love eating. So let me show you some different types. So my challahs are on metal pans, which have a piece of parchment paper that they're resting on so they don't stick. And I have my egg wash mixture. What I use in my egg wash is the egg beaters. I use egg beaters and honey to create my egg wash for my challahs. I find it easier and more consistent than using a beaten egg and water mixed together, because I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about how much water to put in each egg when I'm making my egg wash. So I like using egg beaters, and I always add honey to make my topping slightly sweet. When I egg wash my challahs, I do a double egg wash. So the first challah on my pan is going to be a za'atar challah. And za'atar is a mixture of sumac, thyme, oregano, and sesame seeds. It's a very, very Middle Eastern used spice, and it's a spice blend. So after I have double egg washed my challah, I take my za'atar and I sprinkle it on. We want to get a nice covering of the spice on our challah. It's such a fragrant spice. It just makes the whole house smell delicious. And then this challah is going to be a plain challah, so it'll have that nice sweet glaze or egg wash that we have been brushing over it. Now, I have challah rolls here, and they are just your strands that you would have rolled out to braid for a full challah that I have knotted and made into little rolls. And my kids absolutely adore them. They love making sandwiches out of them. Anything from egg to peanut butter and jelly. We've used them as hamburger buns. I have made little garlic knots out of them. It's just such a versatile way the challah dough is versatile that you can use it in so many different ways in your everyday eating. Now, this challah that I'm making right now is going to be an everything bagel spice challah. So, everything bagel spice is a fun mixture of dehydrated onions and sesame seeds and poppy seeds and sea salt, and that's it. There might be a little garlic in there as well, but it's a nice blend that you know from bagels. It tastes amazing on the challah. And then, of course, we have a very sweet challah. Perfect for any time of the year, but especially perfect going into fall when we think about cinnamon and the spices that we love to have with our everything pumpkin. And this is my churro challah. It's a cinnamon spice blend that just creates the most amazing crust over the top of the challah. Make sure you get plenty of cinnamon in there because it just works so well with the honey and the sugar. And then, of course, we have our stuffed challah, which is our raisin challah. So we want to give a nice egg wash to that. But how are we going to know that it's a raisin challah? Because our raisins are all stuck inside. They're sort of hiding in our strands. So what I like to do after I put my initial egg wash on the challah is I like to add some extra raisins to the top of the challah to make sure that we know what is in our challah. So I just go in and I strategically place some raisins in our crevices where the braids come together to let everybody know that it is indeed a raisin challah. And I have stuffed challahs with chocolate chips. I've stuffed them with craisins. I've stuffed them with butterscotch chips, all of that. And it's absolutely amazing. And then I'm gonna go back over and give it a second egg washing. And then once all of this is done, our challahs will go into the oven and they will bake, like I said, for 30 minutes at 375. Halfway through the process, we're gonna flip the pans so that they get a nice golden brown crust on the top. And here are some of the final products. Over on this pan, I have a plain challah, a za'atar challah, and an everything bagel spice challah. I can't wait to jump into these. I hope you've had fun watching me. See you soon.